Alex Bregman, Sweepstakes round 2. Are the Cubs interested? And what would that mean to the Cubs? How would they fit him in if they went and signed him? And if they don't sign Kyle Tucker, then there's obviously going to be some money to make some moves. We'll talk about that. Kevin Alcantara had surgery. Justin Steele had surgery, and he's doing better. And Jed Hoyer talked about Hollywood Pete, and we'll talk about what he said about Hollywood Pete. All that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Let's get this show started. Great to see you guys, and go Cubs. Hey, say everybody, Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball channel. Obviously, not in the home studio today, but still doing a show for you because you deserve it, and there's a lot to talk about. All right, let's get into this right off the bat. Alex Bregman, the Cubs, remember, they were one of the teams that was pushing really hard for Alex Bregman last year when he became a free agent and after some really good seasons with the Houston Astros. Well, then the Red Sox signed him. He had an opt-out. And guess what he did? He opted out. So now we're kind of starting this whole thing over again. And the Red Sox are going to be in the mix to re-sign him. The Tigers are definitely interested. I mean, look, they were a strong contender last year, and they got really close this year, losing to the Mariners. And he's an all-star. He had another all-star campaign. He had a great first half and then dealt with a quad injury that kind of derailed his second half of the season, but he still ended up hitting 273 on the year. He ended up with a 360 on base percentage, 18 home runs, 62 runs batted in. That was a far cry from, his last year with Houston, where he hit 260 and had 26 home runs and 75 RBIs. And, but look, at the end of the day, he's playing third base. Third base is one of those positions where you look around the league and there's not a whole lot of guys that really stand out. Now, if I'm the Cubs, I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so we got Matt Shaw. And we're pretty happy with Matt Shaw. Now, Matt Shaw is a young player. He's in the Gold Glove finalist category. The bat, was up and down, had a pretty decent second half, didn't do much in the postseason. But he, to me, was a really young rookie. I mean, you're looking at a guy that was just drafted a few years ago. And if I'm the Cubs, I'm a little hesitant to take that third base spot away from him. Now, with that said, the one thing about Shaw that you have to kind of say makes him super valuable is that he can play a ton of positions. So you got a third baseman that's really a shortstop, can play second base. I bet he could play the outfield if he needed him to. Super athlete. If the Cubs did sign Bregman, you could put Shaw as your utility guy, with Willie Castro being a guy who you traded for and you're not going to have. Then, maybe that's an avenue that you think about on next year's roster. So anyway, just something to kind of get into here. And I do think the Cubs might be a player in this. I mean, they were last year. Might cost them a little bit more, maybe more guaranteed money. But you want as many championship level players as you can get. I'm still hoping that the Cubs get Kyle Schwarber back or sign Justin Tucker. I'll take either one of those. And the Athletic put a story out talking about the Cubs need to be a top 5 spender. And if they are, then they're getting those guys, at least one of them. So, but Bregman's in the conversation to me. I think, though, Matt Shaw did enough to give you confidence that as he grows as a player, third base would be a good spot for him. He was so good defensively. And he got on base with the walks, but his bat was inconsistent, although there was a while there during the season where he was the only one hitting. Talking about young players, Kevin Alcantara had surgery, and he is going to be obviously dealing with that for a while. Core surgery. He mentioned it on social media. They basically had to work on a sports hernia Those are super painful. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm the biggest fan of his game, but I think he has a ton of potential, and I think he's a really good guy. And I hope that he recovers quickly. And he always reminded me of a Dave Winfield type of guy. Long arms, but he didn't get really tied up. It was always a maturity thing for me with him. But he's an important cog in the Cubs, young player pieces that they have to kind of move forward. This one's good. Let me put this on the stage here. That is Justin Steele. And Justin Steele, as you are about to see, is working towards returning. There he is. Look at him. Injured last year after a couple starts. He's in Arizona at NASA at the spring training complex, and he's doing his thing. Steele has had a career full of injuries. That's been his downfall. And if he's ever able, then I think that he's the kind of guy who could make a big difference for this Cubs team. We saw it a couple of years ago when he was a finalist for the Cy Young Award. What you don't know, if you don't know him, is how approachable he is. What a good guy Justin Steele is. He's a baseball fan, loves the game. And he's not one of these guys that thinks he's better than anybody else because he plays at an elite level. He's just a really fantastic person. And he's that guy that you cheer for every single day. So I'm glad to see him coming back. And, quite honestly, I didn't know if he would be able to be healthy enough to be the star that he's become. So let's get him back and get him out there. I think he's the future of this Cubs staff. And you start putting him in with the guys that they have, including Kate Horton, and you got a pretty good pitching staff. And who knows what the Cubs do in free agency this offseason. All right, final thing I wanted to get into was Jed Hoyer talking about Pete Crow-Armstron. You guys know Hollywood Pete had a tremendous first half to the season. I mean, he was in the MVP race in the National League, doing it with speed and defense and a lot of power that people didn't realize he had. We did, but not a lot of people did. And you get a lot of these guys that cover prospects, and they're just being fed information from, basically front office people. I saw the guy in person. I knew he had a lot of power, man. The guy's got the best wrists that you're ever going to see on a baseball player, and they're power wrists. And he had 25 home runs and 27 stolen bases, and he was hitting 280 by the All-Star break. But then after that, the league started to make adjustments, and, he ended up with 31 home runs, and he ended up with 30, stolen bases and 30 doubles. But it looked like the guy was going to end up with like 50, like 50 home runs. And the bottom line is that baseball is a game of adjustments, and the league made adjustments to him. Now he's got to make adjustments to the league. But it was good to see Jed Hoyer, when asked that question at the press conference, got to say, hey, man, we're really happy with what Pete Crow-Armstron does. First off, and I agree with Jed, and you guys know this because I've talked about it a lot on this channel. Pete is the best defender at his position of any defenders at any position in baseball. Yeah, he is. I'm not saying it's not close because there's some other guys that are really good at their position too. But he plays the toughest position in baseball, center field, and he plays it really kind of like Sam Fold on crack. I mean, it's like Sam Fold, I thought, was just one of the most electrifying defenders. And Pete Crow-Armstrong's a little bit better. And I love Sammy Baseball, who, by the way, is now the GM of the Phillies. Then you add in his ability to steal bases, and you add in his power, and the fire that he plays with. So it's good to see Jed kind of say, hey, we really think he's, even when he's not hitting, he's one of the best players in baseball. I agree with him on that. The thing that Pete's going to have to figure out is the strike zone. And you don't have to look far to see a guy that's figured that out, and that's Kyle Tucker. So he's got to kind of look at that and go, what's Kyle Tucker doing that I can do to get better at this, taking pitches, hitting my pitch. But I'm with Jed on this one. My, my interest is seeing how good Pete Crow-Armstron can be, because I think the first half Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to be a lot closer to the Pete Crow-Armstrong Cubs are going to have in the future than the second half Pete Crow-Armstrong. But he's going to have to learn how to, and this is a tough thing. He's going to have to learn how to hit his pitch and lay off stuff that he's not able to hit. He's not one of those Guerreros that can hit anything. He's close, but Vladdy and Vlad Jr., man, those guys will hit anything, and they do well with it. So anyway, I have absolutely loved the intensity that Pete Crow-Armstrong brings to the game on a daily basis. And I thought that Jed nailed that when he was talking about Pete in the press conference. All right, guys, look, I want to do this for you right now, because a lot of you are asking me about the swag. And we got you covered. We do got you covered. We're so excited about giving you guys some swag. AveD, join Mick Nation. There's my QR code right there. Right there. Our guy Sean he's back in the headquarters for AveD, beating the drum for you guys to win some swag. So we got hats. They're in, and we're going to make our first hat winner this weekend. How do you do it? Well, if you're already a member of AveD, all you got to do is go and play. Just pick who you think's going to win in the postseason. Pick some college football games. I'm going to tell them to put some Bears in there, some NFL. You guys like that too? And if you're not part of it, join. Hit that QR code and join. And then comment. Get in the comment section. And our buddy Mike was like, I didn't win the tickets. What are you doing? Like, we got more stuff coming. We did tickets for the playoffs. We sent out 2 sets of tickets for the 2 rounds. And we're going to keep on doing stuff like that on AveD. So make sure that you guys check it out. And again, get in the comment section. Tell me what you think. Alex Bregman, would you want him as part of the Cubs? What would you do with Matt Shaw? Kevin Alcantara, where do you project him to be in the future? Justin Steele, are you happy that he's starting to rehab? And then Pete Crow-Armstrong. Hollywood Pete. You got to believe, baby. All right. Thank you, guys. And again, I'm on the road, but I'm doing this for you. Go Cubs.